Hey, it's Mark watching MTC Media here at Cap 1. Georgetown falls in their first Big East game of the season, 102-89 to Xavier. You had to ask Patrick Ewing if they scored 89 points against Xavier. I'm sure he would have told you that he would think there's a good chance of a win. But Georgetown's defense was so poor in the second half, well, actually for the entire game, that they could never really threaten the Musketeers in that last 6-7 minutes. Sule Boom lived up to his name and his reputation. 28 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists. Zach Fremantle had 17 and Jack Nunji had 18. Georgetown was out-rebounded 41-27, but the story is how many open shots that Xavier was able to get just running their natural actions. In the second half, they shot 69% from three. Most of them were wide open shots. And that's the thing that has to be discouraging for Georgetown. Offensively, you got to the free throw line. You had 32 free throw attempts compared to 12 for Xavier, but you only made 19 of the 32. You shot 51.6% from the floor for the game. And you end up with a double-digit loss because Xavier shot 60% from the floor, 53.8% from three, out-rebounded you by 14. And so for Patrick Ewing, there's so many good things that could come out this game that won't come out this game because of loss. Georgetown over the last 6 years have struggled with turnovers. They only had 6 turnovers tonight. They had, at one point, Xavier had 8 turnovers and Georgetown had none. There were things, and that's as a coach, and you could tell in the press conference after the game, that was the frustrating thing for Patrick, and you could see that he was down because of that simple fact of, on paper, if you covered up Xavier's side of the box score and you looked at Georgetown's side of the box score, you sit there and you say to yourself, like, wow, this had to have ended in the Georgetown win. But in reality, the defense was borderline embarrassing, where it ends up not only not in a win, but in a double-digit 13-point loss. They couldn't defend natural actions from Xavier. Anytime Q was out there on the floor, Xavier put him in some sort of screening action, whether it was on ball, off ball. Qudis ended up getting lost. Yes, I know offensively, Qudis had 16 points and 7 rebounds. Defensively, you just could not play him. You couldn't play him at all. It was brought up in the press conference. Georgetown was so much more effective when they had 3 to 4 pass possessions. And when Xavier would go on their run, it was the series of the stuff that has killed Georgetown all year. No pass possessions, 1 pass possessions. Things that always lead to another team going on a big run. And Georgetown, at times, when a team scores 4 or 6 straight points, they cannot help themselves but to race down court and have a no pass possession or 1 pass possession. And they have yet to understand or to accept or to make the change that this is how things snowball and this is how things end up being losses. It's because of those actions. Instead of settling down and getting a good possession on that next possession to stem the tide. If Georgetown's guards do not decide to be better decision makers and to have more of a gauge when that is acceptable and when that is not acceptable, this could be a long year again for the Hoyas in the Big East Conference. Again, offensively, this team is a million times better than last year. In fact, I think last year, the most points that they scored in the Big East game was 77. They had 77 by, I think, 4 minutes left in the game. They had 75, 77 points already. So offensively, this team, much better. They can score. They can put it in the rim. Now, Xavier's not the best defensively, and Sean Miller talked about that he has to find how to fix the problems they've had on defense. It's easier to say that after a win because you almost feel like, hey, I got a road win where I was terrible defensively that was in conference, whereas Georgetown is the opposite. I was at home, Big East opener. I didn't win a Big East game last year, and I score 89 points. I have 32 free throw attempts, and somehow, some way, I walk out with a 13-point loss. And that's one of those things where this is going to test the mettle of this particular locker room. Can they stay together? Do they not, can they stay out of the woe is me? Can you stay out of the here we go again? And those are going to be keys for Georgetown upcoming as they start to get into the heart of the Big East schedule. And when you don't have as many days off and you don't have a cupcake that's been wedged in, you just have straight conference games. They're going to have to recover from it. Again, Marcus Washington here from Cap 1, Xavier 102, Georgetown 89. This is Marcus Washington. We'll make the cut.